Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to our community conversation about faith this morning. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes for some more people to join us, and then we'll get started in about a minute. All righty, everyone. Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Siannah Marcellin, Special Events Development Assistant here at SUM. We are so glad that you all could join us for another community conversation this morning. Today, we'll be discussing faith at SUM and what it truly means to be an interfaith community-based organization, as our mission states. We have a great panel of speakers joining us this morning, but before I introduce them, I want to go over a few housekeeping and Zoom instructions, although I'm sure this will be a refresher for many of you. But first, please note that we'll be recording this presentation, and we have intentionally set aside plenty of time for questions as we hear from our presenters. If you would like to ask a question to any of our speakers, please feel free to utilize the question and answer feature at the bottom of the screen. It's the Q&A icon to the right of the bottom of the screen. We also encourage you to use the chat box, which can also be found at the bottom of the screen where it says chat. Now, I would like to welcome our panelists. Joining us today, we have Ralph Boyd, SUM's wonderful president and CEO. Father John Adams, our President Emeritus, Nahama Mazliansky, our Senior Advocacy Advisor at SUM and former member of Addis Israel. We have Deacon Al Boykin, Chairman of the Tithe the Tithe program at Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria. Pastor Welton Bonner, pastor at Great Love Church in Northeast DC, and also a SUM client. Thank you all of our panelists for joining us for this exciting conversation. As you all hear, we have quite the diverse panel of speakers this morning who are dedicated to and supporters of SUM's mission. It is pretty much unquestionable to say that faith means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I'm sure you all can agree with that. But more often than not, faith has the ability to bring together people from all walks of life to create something great. This is and has been the case here at SUM. It's how we began, it's how we have built, and it's what we continue to pride our work on as we commit to providing support to our most vulnerable neighbors and friends here in the DC area. SUM was founded in 1970 by Father Horace McKenna, along with Dr. Veronica Maz, a sociology professor turned social entrepreneur, Baptist minister Reverend Griffin Smith, and Monsignor Ralph Kuhner. Thanks to this diverse group of individuals and countless additional stakeholders, SUM grew to include dozens of communities of faith, civic organizations, businesses, and government agencies to be a part of reaching our common goal, to break the cycle of homelessness while helping to restore faith and dignity in the individuals we serve. Now, Ralph, here we go. We're gonna get us started now. Your predecessor, Father John, said, interfaith means that whatever one's faith, we have an obligation to create a just society, especially for the poor, the hungry, and the disenfranchised. Later this week, you'll celebrate 1 year since you joined us at SUM. I can't believe it already. What does interfaith mean at SUM today?
So good morning. Thank you, Siannah. Can't believe it's been a year myself. It's been a wonderful, challenging, and inspiring year. So I'll be as succinct initially as I can be, and then I'll expand a little bit. So what interfaith means at some today, it certainly continues to mean what Father John said. I think Father John expressed what I would say is a foundational principle for some with respect to the role of faith in our work. I would say before I expound further that it really is important for people to understand that all faiths and traditions, including people who are not people of faith, are welcome at some. Some doesn't ask people about their faith. It's not a condition of receiving services or being involved in our programs. And we don't proselytize about any specific religion or any specific religious view. But I would say I do believe at some that we continue to be deeply grounded in what I describe as a foundational sense by the principles, by the values and the character attributes that are commonly held and practiced and represented in the many faiths and including humanist traditions represented in our some community, as well as in the broader communities beyond some. And I'd say those principles and those values continue to inform our work. They infuse our approach to our mission of serving vulnerable people in underserved communities, or at least we try to make them part of what we do and how we go about doing what we do. And those values and that spirit and that senses of generosity, of humility, of sacrificial service, of integrity, compassion, inclusion, all of those things. So if you ask me what interfaith means at some, it means what Father John said. It means what it meant when Father Horace McKenna and Reverend G. Smith and Victoria Matz and Monsignor Kiner, when they were building this place, and then Father John came along for 4 decades and continued that build into the organization that we are today. That's what it means. That's what it means to be interfaith. And finally, I would say we would not be at some today, frankly, if it were not for the diverse and inclusive faith community that supported us for over 5 decades. Our founders, of course, as you pointed out, were religious leaders. Churches, temples, synagogues, mosques continue to provide for us essential emergency services for those that come to us, and other civic organizations and businesses, whether or not they align themselves with any particular faith or have any grounding in deity, embrace our shared obligation, our shared responsibility, our shared belief in helping and tending to our neighbors in need. So a bit long-winded, but the point is that our interfaith elements of what we are foundational today in the same way they were in 1970 when Father McKenna was getting this engine started and revved up, and has continued for 4.5 decades under the leadership of Father John, with the support of all the communities of faith that we've talked about, including people who don't share a particular faith, but share those values and those beliefs and their focus on caring for their neighbors in need.
Right. Thank you so much. Father John, while we're on the topic, we're going to fast forward 8 years. When you first came on the board at SUM in 1978, you intentionally welcomed the faith community through what became and remains our Provide a Meal groups. So Ralph referenced that we brought in a ton of people from different religious backgrounds. What can you tell us about these Provide a Meal groups? Can you tell us a little bit about how they got started, how they grew to be so inclusive, and frankly, how they became quite a staple at SUM?
Well, we know that Father Horace McKenna, he was the founder of SUM, along with Father Ralph Keener. He both went together, and they were friends for many years. And after starting in 1970, I had been over in Alexandria, and they both called me up and wanted me to come and to help at SUM. And I think that was now 49 years ago. Anyway, Horace once told me that We had the best soup here in town for the hungry. And I had to tell them that it wasn't very good soup. It was really dumpster soup because two of our staff people way back then would go around and get food out of the dumpsters and bring it back, and then ask people ask our neighbor if she could cook the soup in her house. But actually it wasn't in her house. The lady had some children, and it was over here at 71 O Street that she was living in a room there. And but she had a stove. We didn't have a stove at Some at that time, so we did use her let's see here, hang on one second, I'm getting mixed up. Anyway, she did let us use it, and it was fine, but I told him that we just really needed to have a much better since then. And once I was on board, I told Horace and the board that we really needed to get help, get more food and get them. And I told them that when I was at Christ House in Alexandria for a good many years, that I would send out a letter to all the Catholic parishes over there. And many people, brought food in. They bring a casserole once a month, and it worked out very well. So I thought I would also work out here at Some. And but one of our staff asked, why would I just send a request out to Catholics? And so I said that I didn't know other organizations. So I asked them to provide some names of some other organizations. And so that we reached out to them. So we decided to send letters out to Protestant churches, to synagogues, and to other organizations. And they became what our Provide a Meal is, our PAM, and our PAM groups. And this is why we call Some an interfaith organization. And a letter went out rather soon to the first interfaith woman, Sue Rudo. I don't know if a lot of you probably know Sue Rudo, of course. And she became a friend and would ask me to come to for her Passovers for a good many years. And so she was one of the ones that was one of the first ones also about the interfaith organization. Yeah, and yeah, she's been good. And I was looking up again, and we have, let's see, I think she's been with us for back in many years ago. And she invited me each year for the Passover, but also going to her faith organization. And she invited me to come to the Temple Emmanuel, and she spoke to the Temple Emmanuel to want them to help provide a meal here at Some. So that's really what's happening to me. Does anybody have any questions or answers even?
Thank you for sharing that, Father John. I'm learning as we sit here myself. I think that's wonderful. I know that PAM groups are so important to Some. We really depend on those Provide a Meal groups to help us continue to serve meals every day. Without them, even now during the pandemic, although we can't have our big groups of volunteers, I know that we're still depending on the help of our Provide a Meal groups to continue carrying out our duties.
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of PAM groups, Nahama, your temple, it is Israel. You've been one of Some's Provide a Meal groups. Can you tell us a little bit about the driving philosophy behind Israel's involvement with Some?
Thank you so much for including me and the perspective of Adas Israel congregation, which is in Upper Northwest DC. Each person at Adas may have a slightly different philosophy, but it's fair to say that most of us at Adas have been taught from an early age the importance of something called tzedakah, which in English is translated as charity, but that's not right. Tzedakah is righteousness. It's a kind of loving justice. For example, on Friday afternoons before the Sabbath, many of us, even when we were toddlers, learn to put coins into a tzedakah box that might look or sound like this, or could look like this.
Oh,
And periodically the family would take out the money and send it to a charity. And it made us proud, all of us as a family, to be able to participate. Or we helped our parents prepare and distribute food, or invite needy persons into our homes, or volunteer. And everyone involved was ennobled by that kind of experience. Tzedakah, which has the idea of justice in it, essentially means sharing whatever is needed by the person who needs it. Because underlying that, the things that we have don't really belong to us. They're all on loan to be used. We share so that the world lives in balance and in justice, in partnership with our Creator, in relationship with each other and with ourselves. It's a form, if you will, of co-creating. We know that the world is broken, and it is our job to fix it in small ways as well as big ones. One way of putting words to this philosophy is to say that one actually lives out a moral truth. We exhibit it by what we do with our bodies, our hands, our legs, our mouths. Another important motivation for people to contribute or volunteer at SOM is to honor the memory of a loved one who in their lives enjoyed contributing to other people's well-being. Another is to share the joy of participating in a holy deed called a mitzvah by doing that deed together. And so ADES is a provide a meal group in memory of Sharon Burka's family. And there's a cohort that comes with Sharon at every Monday holiday, national holiday, and they love it. ADES is a regular large-scale collector of non-perishable food and winter coats. It's an advocacy partner as well with SOM. Father John has given sermons in the sanctuary at ADES.
Oh.
And individuals in ADES volunteer in other ways, including in our Center for Employment Training, because the highest form of tzedakah, our sages taught, is helping a person to become self-sufficient.
Wow.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's one of our driving forces here at SOM. And I think Ralph can agree. What we're really trying to do is put our clients and the people that we're serving on a path to self-sufficiency, so they can really not only have the independence and the confidence to live out their own life, but so they can give back to the community themselves. So I think that, thank you for sharing, Muhammad. That was wonderful. I'm going to transition a little bit over to Deacon Boykin, the chairman of the Tithe program. That's a little bit of a tongue twister for me at Alfred Street Baptist Church. Can you tell us a little about the program and why your church recently decided to partner with SOM?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, good morning, everyone. And I can't tell you what a joy and honor it is to join you all this morning. So again, I'm Deacon Boykin, and I'm over at Alfred Street Baptist Church here in Old Town, Alexandria. And yes, a year ago this month, actually, our pastor and I bring you greetings on behalf of our esteemed pastor, the Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley. But he came to the diaconate and he said, and this is at the start of COVID, a year ago this month, that he came to us and said, the Lord is really continuing to bless us in terms of giving, in terms of people joining, because people were looking to make a connection. But we need to do something a little bit more. We need to do something that is going to reach out to the community.
Right.
And when you think about the church itself, it's great to bring disciples to Christ. But at the same time, to go beyond the walls of the church is really where our outreach and where our our joy can really be represented. So we started reaching out to organizations that we could support in the midst of COVID. And the Lord has blessed us in a way that as we look at organizations and we look at the vulnerable populations out there that we could support through these tough times of COVID. And over this past year, we've been able to do that. We connected with some, I don't know, it's probably a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And I must tell you, as I did the research on some and I looked at the various things that you all are doing, God bless you all for just all of the wonderful things that you're doing out in the community. And we truly want to be a part of that and are so honored to partner with you all to help support and provide to the needy out there. And we've had a recent initiative. So Tithe the Tithe, and you're right, Siannah, that can be kind of a tongue twister. So we just call it T3. So it's Tithe the Tithe initiative. Again, but it was launched just so that we could do outreach to the communities. And actually we've gone international as well.
Wow.
To God be the glory. This month we have surpassed $2 million that we have been able to reach out into the community and just give back and just feed where it was needed. And that was a vision that was given to Pastor Wesley here again, April of last year. There are 7 of us that actually serve on the Tithe committee. And our focus over this past year is we've been dedicated to feeding hunger and homelessness, recidivism, seniors, youth, any place where there was a need and that we might be able to provide support. We're just thankful for that opportunity to give back.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. That is amazing. $2 million. It's really great to see how, people are willing there and they're wanting to give back to the community. And I feel that a lot of times the church provides the resources to make sure that can happen. I know some people struggle trying to find out, well, I don't know who I'm going to give to or how I'm going to give to them or how I can give back. So I think it's really important that, there is a place where people can meet and work for a common goal. And I know that in my upbringing, a lot of my young charity life was through the church, going to Sunday school and doing those volunteer opportunities and raising money with my family. So I think that is completely awesome what you all are doing. The Tithe program is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Amen.
I'm gonna direct my next question back to Ralph. We have a lot of developments in the works at Some. Looking ahead, how do you plan to continue to engage the faith community in Some's mission?
So that question could take me an hour, but I'll take a couple minutes, Siannah, and be as brief as I can. So I certainly have every expectation that the faith community will continue to play a critical role in our mission and our ongoing efforts to execute that mission. And you've been around here the last several months, and we're involved in the development of a really robust and energetic and ambitious, and I would even say audacious strategic plan to grow our 9 lines of services, our affordable housing with supportive services, our food pantries and food distribution networks, our other emergency services, our health clinics, medical, dental, behavioral health, our substance disorder clinics, our certified employment training programs, and academic enrichment. So that's all going to grow, and probably with a really aggressive profile. And I expect the various communities of faith will continue to be a part of us and support us in the range of things that we do in the various ways that their own talent and their treasure and their time will allow. I expect the faith community will be a source of referring people to us who are in need of our services and our programs. I expect the faith communities will help represent us and represent our mission to the communities and the world beyond the boundaries of the neighborhoods and communities and people that we serve. I expect the faith community will preach and teach and just tell the story of the good news of SUM's mission and services, and underscore what underlies our mission. And I think, Siannah, you've heard me talk about this internally. That mission is a commitment to what? To saving lives, to loving people, to saving lives, to transforming lives, to improving lives of the people who are vulnerable and communities that are underserved. So the faith community is going to continue to be an important part of all of that. And we'll also be welcoming the advice and counsel of faith leaders, so that our services can evolve and accommodate a growing number of clients with various religious practices and traditions. So let me give an example of that. We'll probably be adjusting over time how we deliver our food services to be more inclusive and understanding of clients' religious obligations and diets. Coincidentally, today marks the beginning of Ramadan, a period when our Muslim friends fast from dawn to dusk. But there are many different dietary guidelines, abstaining from meat during Lent, fasting, keeping kosher, et cetera, that we can and should consider as we do our work of improving and transforming and saving the lives of our clients and our residents and the people that we serve, so that they are healthier materially, emotionally, and as you've heard me say, spiritually. We want them to be prosperous in all those different ways. And then finally, I would say, and this is part of the exciting good news going forward, as part of the kind of capital improvements we expect to come with this strategic plan, is redeveloping the dining center facilities so that we can increase our capacity for not just serving food in person and takeout, but also increasing our shower capacity, our locker capacity, email kiosk service, our mail service, those kinds of things. But we also expect to develop the warehouse that we just purchased that's adjacent to our O Street headquarters, that will build out all of those emergency services, probably expand our healthcare clinics, and also be the place where we're able to create an interfaith, interdenominational chapel and meditation space, so that we can address the spiritual aspects and reinforce and support the spiritual needs of those people that we serve, in addition to those material and physical and emotional needs. So that's my answer.
That was more than I could ask for. Look at you. I'm proud.
And unusually concise for me, right?
Wow, I'm impressed.
I felt a sermon coming on, so I shut myself down there.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Pastor Bonner, you and your family have had an interesting journey with SUM. In 2015, you were one of our first families to reside in SUM's Donahue House, and your growth has only continued. So what can you tell us about your involvement with SUM's accelerated housing program and your involvement with SUM in general?
Yeah, thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on here, everyone, and greetings, everyone watching. So in 2019, well, it goes back to 2018. I'm gonna try to be as brief as I can. My older sister, who experienced abandonment from her husband, who left her with 6 kids alone, she got into SUM. And as she was delivering her 6th child, my wife and I stayed in the apartment building over off of Benning Road. I forgot which house that is. There's so many different houses. That's the headquarters. It looks great.
Conway Center, the Conway
that's
Center.
it. That's it. So we were in the Conway Center, and my sister, she, man, I'm so grateful on her behalf for just the way you all provided that resource for her and her family in such a painful time. It was such a blessing. And so we just stayed in there with her kids and my son, and we just kind of were there, and we were like, man, we have to, because my wife was pregnant at the time. And then we were staying in a 1-bedroom apartment that had some, our landlord was kind and did the best he could, but there was, some major problems that we were like, we can't stay like this. And my son is sleeping in a closet right now, all because we're trying to advance the gospel in Ward 7, east of the river, and the resources don't flow east of the river as much. So we're dealing with all that. So I'm trying to be brief, y'all. Anyway, so we stay at Conway, and we're like, we gotta reach out and see how can we live in this building. And so my wife spoke to one of the representatives there, and she said, well, just send this email to the intake place. And they actually responded, and they were like, hey, we actually give us this information. And then that's when we got into Liz Donahue house, moved in there December 2018. Wow. And so we moved in, and it was a lot going on in that season, but we moved in, and by God's grace, it was such a blessing. But then our one of the representatives, I'm forgetting names right now, but she came to our group probably around June or something like that. And she said, well, for all the families that were interested in home ownership, and mind you, I'm a local church pastor, but it's not a lucrative industry if you're not trying to rob people. So, so as long as I'm trying to stay honest with my people, that, you kind of got to make ends meet however you can. And so, and I'm working through a PhD program on basically people have donated so that I could get through my education. Wow. So that's miraculous there too. But so we get into this first time home ownership program. And as soon as they tell us that we can apply, my wife and I had the information in that day. We weren't playing. And so then they actually responded, and they actually had next steps. And by God's grace, we got accepted, and we moved here on O Street, and we moved in February 2020. Now, that was huge. And my son and daughter, they have their bedroom. I have a study here. And so this is, and the whole purpose of the program is to help us to get to a place where we're able to save and then build a foundation to one day own a home of our own. And so to have that, so as a minister myself, to be ministered to in such a way that is so dignified and so holistic, that says, hey, we understand DC is expensive, so we want to build you all up so that you can build a strong foundation to flourish long term. And it's such a gift to us. And so I'm grateful to some, and my, we can't thank them enough, and thank the Lord enough for orchestrating all that so that we could even be in the program. And so I'm really grateful.
Siannah, if I can interject myself, I understand that you're in charge here, but if I can have a moment of privilege, I just have to respond to that. So Pastor, first of all, thank you for that powerful testimony. That, we can talk the talk, but somebody who's able to talk what they've lived is more powerful than anything that I might say. So thank you for the grace of that message. But also you said a couple things that I just have to underscore. You used the words dignified and holistic. And so if Siannah, you started out asking me what interfaith meant today at some. That's part of what infuses what we do and how we do it. When I answered that question that way, that's what I meant. And dignified and holistic underscores that as well as anything. And then you also made reference, Pastor, to you pastoring and being ministered at the same time. So it's that the power of that bilateral or multilateral ministering, pastoring, caring for, however you want to describe it in faith terms or secular terms, that I think is so powerful a part of what we do and kind of really foundational for us. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Daryl Wright as well, who heard about the ministry and knowing about the pandemic and around Thanksgiving time, they gave gift cards to different people, but they were like, hey, here's some gift cards in case there's families that that need that. And several families in our church, in addition to what our church was already doing, we were able to kind of combine those resources, and even some that were single but struggling to make ends meet. Like, that was a powerful moment. And so I wanted to thank Daryl Wright for that. Right. His that foresight, because he didn't even ask, he just volunteered that. And I was like, wow, that was so kind.
For those on the webcast, Daryl is our Vice President for Emergency Services. So he oversees the food distribution network, the dining center, the takeout food, the clothing, the showers, the email access, the mail access, all that stuff is under Daryl's purview. So thanks for calling him out, Pastor.
Before we continue, Pastor, you did say something else that struck me. You said you felt uplifted. I know my mom, she always says, you're around good company when they uplift you. And it's important for all of us to feel uplifted. And it comes in many shapes and forms, but to be able to feel uplifted and feel motivated to uplift others, that's a feeling that is unbeatable. It's unmatched, and it's second to none. So I am so proud that some was able to provide that to you and put you in a position to uplift others as well. At this time, we're going to go ahead and start our question and answers. I do see that we've gotten a couple of questions. As I mentioned before, for any of you who may have missed it, we will be utilizing the question and answer box at the bottom right of your screen. Also, feel free to use the chat box. We do have a first question here, and it is for Ralph. What role do secular organizations and groups play at some?
So thanks for that question, because it's an important one, because one of the things I started out saying was, yes, we are very much interfaith grounded, but our umbrella also embraces people who don't practice a particular faith. But I would point out, share the values of the faith community and the principles of the faith community. So very much like the faith community, secular organizations can do a range of things, including connecting their staff and the people within their universe, if you will, to volunteer opportunities at some, hosting food drives, supporting our special events, volunteering with their time and talent. So we talk about the trifecta of time, treasure, and talent, but talent is one of the things that folks from those secular organizations or people connected to them can do for us. And volunteering isn't just serving meals, that's an important part of it, but also teaching, mentoring, tutoring, anything that you bring to the table that connects to some service or program that we're delivering, that does what I talked about, loves people, cares for people, saves them, improves them, transforms them. All of that counts, and those organizations, just like the faith community, support that work. Our corporate advisory board, which is an all-star board, includes several business leaders in the Washington, D.C. area, They provide counsel, support, advice to us, troubleshoot for us, intervene for us at times with influencers, and are in places where we can't always be for us. They host our annual dinner gala. They connect us to important stakeholders. So all of those things are on the table and a part of what the non-technical faith community and communicants to those communities do for us and with us. So just as with our faith communities, secular organizations, all that is on the table for them as well. So we've got a pretty broad umbrella, but that engine is very much fueled by our deep and abiding and foundational faith and what that faith drives us to do, which is that spirit of sacrificial service.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to mention for anyone sending in any questions, if you do want to direct your question to someone specific, please note that in the questions. Otherwise, I'll just be asking them generally. So another question that we have from Mr. Spalding: do you see the classically religious concepts of charity, tzedakah, having comparably important corresponding values for humanists? And if so, how can some improve outreach to potential supporters who identify as humanists?
So can I take the first whirl at that? I love that question, and I was trying to anticipate it in my opening remarks and speak to it. So those principles and values are the things that I talked about: generosity, humility, simplicity, and Pastor Welton referred to, I think, inferentially, simplicity when he talked about, I think, living frugally if you're not taking advantage of people. So simplicity is a part of that. Integrity, compassion, inclusion. Those are all, as I understand it, human secular principles that a lot of people who aren't people of a particular religious faith share. All of the faith traditions that are represented and reflected at some share those core values. Those are, and I think Nahama brilliantly captured it in her comments, but I think it's been in hearing and kind of almost everything you've heard. So those that makes the SUM mission and our approach to that mission and the spirit surrounding that mission, in my view, a broad and easy sell to the broader community of people who want to and view as part of their own social responsibility. Makes it an easy sell. This is for people of faith. This is a way to put our faith in action. This is and that's across the faiths that are represented at SUM. And I was laughing when Nahama was talking, because she just did it so beautifully. And as she was talking, I was thinking about that famous phrasing from Saint Francis, talking about at all times preach the good news, but when necessary, use words. So I think that speaks to kind of the action and the values that underlie that action that are shared across our faith communities, but also the humanist principles that drive folks who may not practice a particular faith.
Thank you. And our next question, I'm sure you or Father John may be able to answer this one, but we've been asked, how does SUM reach out to people in need outside of the circle of faith?
Why don't I throw that to Nahama? She's very, can I throw that to you, Nahama?
It's a wonderful question. It's almost a mind-blowing question. Here are some thoughts. One is that people in need know about SUM. The word of mouth has been on the street for 50 years. You're hungry, go to 71 O Street. You need this, you need that. I know somebody, here's the social worker. Also bear in mind that when the world is normal, There's a series of vans that go from every low barrier shelter that's under contract to the district to bring people to the dining room at some for breakfast. And the vans pick people up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to take them back to the shelters. So they know about our services. And you might remember, if you've been in the dining room, that we have these enormous photo murals depicting each kind of our service, the beautiful color done by the husband of one of our staff members, just wonderful. So that people, if they're not too depressed to pick up their heads, can see somebody getting dental care or being in a group for substance use disorder, or our housing, or our retreat in West Virginia. And we have in reach in the dining room from our staff, our social workers, our physicians, and so forth, and people from other organizations such as the Board of Elections or the Census Bureau, or somebody coming to the parking lot while we're distributing food to tell people about how to get their stimulus checks. And of course, we want people to know about what services we're providing for them through emergency services, as well as go to the front desk here, go to the front desk across the street. You see that building with the yellow and purple stripes, the purple stairs? That's our other building. Here's who to ask for. So these referrals are made right there at the starting point of services, which is still the dining room. Bear in mind, our continuum of care is huge. It starts with people who may just have come into the city, whom are sleeping on the street, have no idea what to do, how to survive. And someone says, come with me, I'm going to get a hot breakfast. They don't ask any questions. And it could lead them to recovery. It could lead them to dental care. It could lead them to workforce development. It could lead them to permanent housing. You know, 16 years ago, we had 4 buildings, and we now have at least 24. We have about 950 adults and 450 children plus in our housing right now, and every one of them gets supportive services. So you know that the word of mouth is out there. Also, we operate through so many coalitions and partnerships with city agencies, with other nonprofit organizations. They all know about us. Some don't know how comprehensive and big we really are. We have sites in 7 out of the 8 wards and in West Virginia and 1 in Virginia. So people can't wrap their minds around, so others might eat, isn't that a soup kitchen? No. But the world we operate in really does know and knows how to make the referrals. And well, anybody, if I'm ever in a taxi back in the old days and they drove me to the office, I tell them, if you're ever hungry, if you know, see someone who's hungry, just send them here. No questions asked. Here are our hours. Here's the front desk flyer.
Right.
Because, so Nahama's nailed it, as I knew she would. But it's really because of that scale and our duration, our history of service in this community. We get referrals from every place. A lot of people come to us because they're referred by city agencies. People come to us because they're referred to us by other nonprofits. People come to us because of what they learn about us from the media. You know, we did vaccinations here at our health clinic on O Street a couple Fridays ago. So it's literally true that we get referrals from everywhere. And our pipelines into us come from everywhere. A great example of that is, you know, recently we had 11 openings in our single adult housing. And that was advertised throughout the media. And we opened our website to take applications for 1 day for 8 hours and received over 1,000 applications online in 8 hours for 11 vacancies.
Wow.
One, that speaks to the crushing need, but it also speaks to the broad visibility of what we do in our services. So in some ways, I love our name, so others might eat. I love the biblical connection and the visuals of it. But in some ways, that brand underserves us in the sense that we are so much more than about bread today.
Pastor Bonner, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I can't speak for some, so I want to be careful. But I can say, I want to speak to a misconception that I think exists about faith communities. The misconception is that you have to be of our faith for us to help you. And in the words of James, the elder of the Jerusalem church, he says, faith without works is dead. And if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I'm hungry, and you say, oh, God bless you, go and be on your merry way, he says, that's not real faith. And so if me serving you is conditional on you believing what I believe, that's not love. And in fact, Jesus, he once told a story that we all have maybe heard about, but maybe didn't realize the depth of it. But the Good Samaritan is an illustration of someone who was literally on the other side of the tracks and was, this guy's on the road, he's gotten robbed and beaten, left for dead. The religious rulers walk past, step over him because they're in a rush to get back from their temple and they don't want to get robbed too, okay? And so they bypass him.
Right.
But his ethnic enemy literally stoops down and spends his money and his resources to care for him, and then takes him where he can be cared for, and then says, if there's any extra needs, you can put it on my tab, I'll cover it. And so I think genuine faith is unconditional. You could literally hate Christianity, but if you need something and I know of it, it is my responsibility to show you that love, regardless of what you believe about me and my Jesus. So I just wanted to say that because I think it's necessary to just clear that up just a little.
You brought us full circle, because I think one of the first things I said was our services are not conditioned on what you believe. And you're 100% right, Pastor, is that the anointing that we hope occurs no matter who you are, what you believe. It's about who we are and what we believe.
You guys hit it right on the head, because I was just thinking in the beginning, I said your faith brings together people from all walks of life. If you have it in any form, it should join you with someone else. We have time for just one more question. And we have here, I see we're working on answering questions about when PM groups will be up. So please keep your eye on the answer box. We do have that answer in there. But this last one we have, how does SUM plan to connect with its non-Christian faith-based staff and clients, given that default in faith organizations tends to be Christian-centered? Basically, we're trying to find out where's that connection? How are we including everyone and not just celebrating Christmas? What other celebrations and calendar things are we going to be looking to include, if any, moving forward?
So we tend to not have, we focus more on serving people at all times, in all seasons, in all conditions, regardless of holidays, faith holidays, or others. So one is that I think one example is we very often have people who don't affiliate with a particular faith who will volunteer for us to serve during those faith holidays like Christmas and Easter and others. And so the message to the world is through not just the faith community, as we've been talking about, but we have so many other organizations and people that are connected to us. And so much of what we do and how we do it is marketed, if you will, is expressed, is demonstrated, and is articulated through those people and those organizations in those communities. So we'll continue to do that. And look, we're not running from our past. We're proud of our past. This organization was founded and built. I like to say it, this isn't entirely accurate, but it captures the visual. I like to say it was started by a couple Catholic priests handing out sandwiches from the back of a country squire station wagon, because that's kind of the way in which it started. But it's so much more than that. It's so much bigger than that. It involves so many more communities of faith and also communities of caring that, as we've said, we've taken great pains to say, may not be people or communities of people who practice a faith, but share our values of service, of sacrificial service, of caring for people who need it around us, of humility, of spreading holistic dignity, if you will, all of those things. So I hope that's clear to people. We embrace our interfaithness, but our embrace is much broader than that. What we are really embracing is people who share those values of wanting to care for, to love, and to serve those people in our community who need it, people who are vulnerable in communities that are historically underserved. Don't know how to say it any differently than that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we are going to be wrapping up. We're coming to the end of the hour. And I just want to say, someone once told me that faith is a combination of belief, hope, and patience. And I think all of our panelists today have shown us that, and much, much more. It was definitely my goal to leave this conversation with a new and improved definition of faith and a deeper understanding of what it means to be a part of an interfaith organization. And I definitely feel that goal was accomplished this morning. I think I can speak for all of our panelists when I say that I hope you enjoyed this intriguing and thought-provoking conversation as much as we have. And we hope you will join us at our next community conversation, which will be Thursday, June 17th at 10 a.m. when we'll discuss some Center for Employment training. But thank you all again for tuning in, and extra special thanks to all of our panelists, Deacon Boykin, Pastor Bonner, Father John. It was really nice to see you, Father John. It's been a while. Nahama and Ralph, who participated this morning. So with that being said, we are going to wrap up. I hope everyone has a great day, and we really hope to converse with you all again soon.
Thank you, Siannah. Thank you, everyone.
Amen. Amen.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.